class that is called DUI, Drug Defense, Beware, Avoid Ethical and Legal Malpractice, Provide Real Help. All of that I have to take responsibility for. I couldn't make up my mind what to call it by. It's going to do all of those things. It's going to do all of those things. We have 8% of the United States population over age 12 has been diagnosed to have a substance abuse problem. Now, those are statistics that date back to March of 2013. There really is a scarce amount of reliable research, but most people say that's 25 million, it's more like 40 million. When I started working in substance abuse, I was amazed at how many accidental deaths were related to that. It was second in the country at that time. We are now a long way from the day when I heard for the first time that it is the leading cause of accidental death in America. Every one of you, as a lawyer, okay, as a person, is going to be impacted by substance abuse. When we say substance abuse, we're talking about substance abuse. We're talking about alcohol, uncontrolled use of alcohol. We're talking about marijuana, both grown and synthetic. We're talking about all the opioids and cocaine. We're talking about what I call all the freedom robbers. So when today is over, you could choose to write a brief or something, or you could choose to listen, and if you listen, you'll take something valuable away from this class. I put my heart into this. I put my soul into this. I'm 67. I don't know how I got into, much less out of law school. I did it as an adult. I did it at night class in Duquesne University. But whatever time I have left, I am convinced that I'm a member of this community as a world community. And we have 5% of the United States population over age 12. I'm sorry, we have 5% of the world's population, period. We have 25% of the world's prison population. Let me repeat that in a different way. 5% of the world's population live within the borders of the United States. 25% of the people in the world who live behind bars live in the United States. Okay? That is amazing to me. And there are answers now. When I first started doing substance abuse, they didn't have answers. I know you probably said, okay, they're using drugs, and who wants to get involved in that? We now have answers. It's a totally new day. I was amazed. Bruce, myself, my paralegal here, we were on our way here through the windy ways of coming up off of, what is it, Heidelberg exit? Yep. All I know is we came up through a way that took us through some residential areas. There in the middle of nowhere was a yard sign that said Vivitrol, Suboxone, call me, doc.com or something. Yep. I remember there was a time when I was being in front of this class, and Mr. Attorney Nasolero, you remember this too, when people would look at me like I was crazy when I told them there was an injectable substance that was non-narcotic that you could take that would keep you from getting high on alcohol or opiates for 30 days. People looked at me. Now we see yard signs. So the message is getting out. However, the book you have talks about a lot of research, and you need to stand in front of a court and know something and have some authority. So it's very important for you to understand that there was a major article written about 2011 by our friend, some of you may be members of the National Association of Criminal Defense Attorneys, or lawyers. That's our mother organization, okay? And it was a scathing article against diversionary courts. Diversionary courts, we'll go into this detail when it's my turn. Diversionary courts, we'll talk about later, but they're drug courts and things like that. The major scathing editorial had several reasons, which we'll get into later, but the most important one was that diversionary courts are preventing lawyers from being lawyers. How many people in here have ever heard of an ARD? Please raise your hand. Okay. Kangaroos have a little wee hand. Humans have 2 seconds. Let me see. Okay. ARDs? Okay. ARD is accelerated rehabilitative disposition. Okay? Accelerated rehabilitative disposition. You know what that means? A lot of people say, oh, have you been arrested in the last 10 years? No. Oh, you're ARD. Okay? They make a compelling argument that maybe the guy didn't do it. Okay? Maybe there's a defense. Maybe they can't prove he did it. All those things. We're still trial lawyers, I think. So at the same time we're pushing treatment and we're pushing diversionary concepts, we are reminding everybody in our classes that we're still trial lawyers. And having said that, our first presenter, I mean, you guys are in for a real thrill. And you guys out there that are going to be watching this someday, maybe after my suit is dated, are going to be in for a real thrill too. Alexander H. Lindsay is an attorney, and he's in the Butler area. I think he lives in Sarver, right. And you have a golf course out there called Bird's Foot. Is that also in Sarver?
Freeport.
Freeport, okay. And he comes from a long line of lawyers. His father was a very successful lawyer. And Alexander Lindsay is going to be our first instructor. And we are going to go to one of the most fundamental concepts of criminal defense. You will get your money's worth in the next hour if you pay attention. Every person who has ever been a criminal lawyer, and those of you who have never been one, should become one. Because criminal law is an exciting area. It'll put a pulse rate back in you. It'll make you excited when you look at some guy who has the weight of an entire government coming at him to help that guy. Okay? But when you're a criminal lawyer, if you are worth anything, usually, and Mr. Lindsay will speak for himself, it's my opinion that anybody who waives a preliminary hearing without getting something very significant is waiving and giving up an opportunity. So I'm going to assume, for purposes of introducing Mr. Lindsay, that number one, you didn't fall for the diversionary ARD first. You made sure you had a defense. If you have a defense, then darn it, be a trial lawyer. If you have a defense and you're going to do it, you want to assert it, you want to make sure that you have a preliminary hearing, and that'll set up what I believe would be your ability to cross-examine and impeach a witness. Everybody can tell you there's all kinds of things that you had in school and whatever, but you're going to see it this time. You're going to actually see it. So, Mr. Lindsay actually grew up in Freeport, the Butler area. He graduated in history. Him and I, every time we talk, we start talking about history, and I love history, and so does he. And he's graduated from Washington Jefferson College in 1968. In 1972, by the way, it would take me the rest of your credit hours to read all the things he's done. This is just a major overview. Mr. Lindsay in 1972 became the first full-time assistant district attorney in the history of Butler County in the position that investigated and prosecuted all types of white-collar crime and public corruption. Okay? And that was not as fashionable back then. His most significant work as assistant district attorney in Butler was the public corruption. In 1974, he was appointed to supervise a special grand jury investigation of allegations of corruption at the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. I'm skipping again, of course. In August 1975, Mr. Lindsay was appointed as assistant U.S. attorney for the Western District of Pennsylvania under U.S. Attorney Richard Thornburgh, former Governor Thornburgh, a position he held until 1980. Again, public corruption was his forte. I live in Newcastle, Pennsylvania, Lawrence County, and I remember it like it was yesterday. I can remember all of the political inactivity, the political, God, will somebody do something? And all at once, this guy who was a career congressman was on the front page, but this time he was being prosecuted. And Mr. Lindsay prosecuted successfully our former representative, is U.S. Representative Clark. I'm not going to go into that on that. Okay? He had many high-profile public corruption cases. I didn't even know it, but he was touching my life back then. I come from a small town in West Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, if anybody knows where that's at. It's 5 miles south of Newcastle. I can remember choking on sulfurous smoke from a thermal electric plant called Penn Power, and they were burning low-grade coal. And it turned out that they were driving distances to get coal, and these people had a scam where they would put the high-grade coal, an inch of it, on top of the truck, these triaxles, and underneath was all bad stuff. And we're choking on sulfur. Al Lindsay was the person who successfully convicted the chairman of our party in Lawrence County and put it all away for us. In July 1980, he kind of left behind all of that, although they were flirting with him to be a federal judge under the, that would have been under the Bush years, correct? Bush senior or junior? Junior. Okay. He did not go that direction, and he's still an attorney. I'll bet if you flip through your channels in the next week and a half, you'll see his picture on the paper, on the TV. But I am telling you, one of the most sincere compliments I can give him, I've been doing this for 30 years. I like it. I really like it. I really like trial work. He teaches trial tactics at the University of Pittsburgh and has done so for several years. I tell you, I learned so much from just listening to him. He has become a professional teacher for me. He has become a professional mentor. And when I say mentor, I'm talking about a family person too. He has taught me so much about life. My father passed away a long time ago. He's like the older brother I never had. He's not that much older than I am, by the way. But I can tell you, Al, my way of thanking you for touching mine and my family's heart in this profession, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Lindsay so he can talk to you about what he wants. And I don't want to hype or jump ahead of anything he wants to tell you, but I am telling you, if you want to learn something about being a real lawyer, pay attention in the next series of 60 minutes. Al Lindsay?
Thank you very much for those very kind remarks. I have to be honest with you, I'm very nervous about coming and giving this lecture because I think you'll find it somewhat peculiar, what I'm going to tell you. What I'm going to talk about tonight is cross-examination. And the title of my speech, if you will, is called The Norton Bomb Site of Cross-Examination. And what is this Norton bomb site? It's use of a prior inconsistent statement to impeach. The reason I'm nervous is because I do some things that are unusual, and I was afraid it wouldn't go over here. You know, Butler County is different. I was concerned when I found out that this was in Bethel Park. I thought to myself, well, Dorothy, you're not in Butler anymore. This is Bethel Park. These lawyers are sophisticated. They've probably been to Duquesne University. They've probably written on one of all those journals that they have at Duquesne. And they're much more sophisticated than I am. So in any event, what I'm going to talk about is cross-examination. Cross-examination. How important as a trial lawyer is cross-examination? Has anybody ever heard of Irving Younger? Anybody? In the 1970s, Irving Younger did a series of lectures, and one of them was called The 10 Commandments of Cross-Examination. It became the Bible of cross-examination. And by the way, if anybody ever wants to try a case, I recommend go on YouTube, put in Irving Younger's 10 Commandments, and you can see the lecture that he gave. Not only is it very instructive, but it's very, very, very entertaining. He's a great guy. He's been dead for a number of years, but his work is still there. And with regard to the importance of cross-examination, Irving Younger said this: in our Anglo-American system of justice, cross-examination is the greatest litmus test we know of in the history of the world to determine veracity, whether someone's telling the truth. As Irving Younger said, it's damned important. And I would suggest this, that it is very important. And the question is assuming it's that important, how often is cross-examination done effectively? How often do you see an effective cross-examination, a cross-examination that gets to the point, has a few good points, wins over, where the lawyer dominates the cross-examination? How often? Irving Younger used to say, when he did his lecture, that when someone does a successful cross-examination, it startles everybody so much that sirens go off in the courtroom. Everybody runs to the courtroom. In England, in civil cases, they don't do direct examination. What they do in England is they read an affidavit on direct, and then the opposing lawyer gets to cross-examine. And these cross-examinations are so effective and so entertaining that people come to court just to hear the cross-examinations. They're very, very entertaining. So it's very, very important. So I'm going to talk about what I call the Norton bomb sight of cross-examination. And I should state at the outset, I will be making certain threats to you. These are symbolic threats. No one's going to get hurt here. Everyone's going to go home okay. But be prepared. You may get some threats. And I'll start with this threat. Angelo suggested that people may not want to listen to this. People may want to look at their computer. People may want to read newspapers. I can't control what you do. I'm not a teacher in class that can take away your cell phone from you. I'm not a tip staff and one of the judges to say you have to turn off your cell phone. But I will suggest this. We're going to give you later on certain ways to do cross-examination, certain rules that if you follow, you will become a great cross-examiner. And you see, what we like to say is we pay attention to people that have taken our little course here. And you see, you fill out a card when you leave here. And what I'm saying is, we know who you are here. Oh yes, we know who you are. And when you go around to the various courts in Pennsylvania, we have what I call minions. I don't know what minions are, but it sounds pretty damn scary. We have minions that go to places like Brooklyn, Clearfield, Washington, Waynesburg. We have minions that are observing everything you do. And what I'm suggesting to you, that if you take this course and you didn't listen and you violate these rules, we will find you, we will hurt you. Everybody understand? It's pretty damn serious. We talked about the Norton bomb sight. Anybody ever hear of the Norton bomb sight? Oh, this is rich. You, a couple people. Yeah. All right, let me explain to you what the Norton bomb sight is and why I say what I'm going to give you is the Norton bomb sight of cross-examination. In the early 1920s, I think specifically 1922, Carl Norton was an engineer and he developed a bomb sight. Carl Norton wanted to be able to bomb ships from planes, and ships are a tiny target. And so he developed this bomb sight. And what it was probably the most sophisticated computer of that era. And what you would do is you would put into the bomb sight the speed of the plane, the speed of the wind, the altitude of the plane. And in addition to that, the crosswinds, everything was put into this bomb sight. And in addition to that, there were gyros, so that when the plane was bouncing around, because as they flew over Germany and the flak hit, they could continue to fly the plane. This bomb sight was placed in the front of the B-17s, the B-24s, the B-25s, the B-26s. And the bomb sight was so sophisticated that they suggested that the standard line is we could drop a bomb at 20,000 feet with a plane that's flying 300 miles an hour in the middle of flak and put a 500-pound bomb in a pickle barrel. Why someone wanted to put a bomb in a pickle barrel, I don't know. And really, it wasn't that accurate, but you could generally get a bomb within, say, about 25 yards, which when you consider the speed they were flying with the altitude was really something. The Norton bomb sight was so secret, it was considered such a great device, that bombardiers, when they went to bombardier school, they would bring in the Norton bomb sight. And it was shrouded with a cover. And what they would do is they would make all of the bombardiers take an oath that they would never reveal the secrets of the Norton bomb sight. And you know, if they had, they probably would have been court-martialed and sent to Fort Leavenworth. This bomb sight was used by the United States Air Force all the way through the Vietnam War. It's only in the 1980s we even found out much about it. And so I thought, to be symbolic, we would produce our own Norton bomb sight. So I'm calling on one of my minions at this point to bring forth our Norton bomb sight. This is what it was like. Everybody be watching. It would bring in the Norton bomb sight.
Where shall I set it, sir?
Place it here. I'm not going to make anybody take any oaths. It's all right, you can calm down. We have threats but no oaths. Okay, now, it had a significant role in ending the war. It's one of those technological advances that occurred in the Second World War that made a huge difference. So, I'm going to talk about our Norton bomb sight, and the specific device that I'm speaking of is using prior statements of the witness to cross-examine the witness and hopefully to overcome a lying witness. That's what this is all about. So I'll start by talking, before we get into the use of the bomb site, which is the impeachment by cross-examination with a prior inconsistent statement, some general rules of cross-examination, which we should all know, but some of us know and some of us don't. First of all, on cross-examination, we only ask leading questions. And so what everybody understands what a leading question is a question which suggests the answer. Isn't it true, sir? And you didn't do that, did you? It always asks for generally affirmative. You're asking the witness to agree with your tiny little speech. We all know that you should only ask questions that you know the answers to. And that's, of course, because you're going to prepare for the cross-examination. The third thing I would suggest to you you need to do in cross-examination is be brief. Be brief. You know, I teach trial advocacy in Pitt, and I was talking to one of the students, and they suggested to me that they were going to try cases before a judge who limited cross-examination to 20 minutes. And I said to the student, why in the world would anybody want to go beyond 20 minutes? Because you see, what happens is, assuming that you have 4 or 5 great questions, the issue is, will the jury ever remember them? You know, one of the things I think is interesting, some lawyers have a phenomenal question, knockout question. And it will be question number 144 in their 2-hour cross-examination. It's lost. It's lost. You want to get in and get out. And in that regard, people believe, an inexperienced lawyer, I think, believes that cross-examination is like a war. We're going to have a war with the witness. We're going to defeat the witness. No, my friends. Cross-examination is what I call a commando raid. Do you know what a commando raid is? You get in, you set your charges in the bridge, and you get out. And you get out before you get your butt shot off, because that's what happened. You see, people believe that cross-examination is a minefield for the witness. Oh no, my friends. Cross-examination is a minefield for the lawyer. Terrible things can happen to the lawyer on cross-examination. So what you want to do is get in, ask your good questions that you planned out effectively, and get out. Always remember this. The thing about cross-examination, what we consider our Norton Bob side of cross-examination, that it's about controlling the witness. You see, witnesses believe, and the lawyers who present witnesses believe, that the witness has an agenda and they can do whatever they want. But you see, not when you're cross-examining and using this bomb site, because you're going to control the witness. And in saying that, here's what I want to tell you. If you're cross-examining a witness, there is only one acceptable answer to every single question you ask. And what is the answer? We know what it is. Yes. Yes, that's true. Yes. Your question should be so tight that the only thing that they can do is to say yes. And ladies and gentlemen, here's the deal. And this is what this bomb site's all about. When the witness says no, when the witness says got some long answer, something has to happen. The witness must be punished. The witness must be disciplined. The witness must get the message. You will not accept any answer that's not yes. And how do you do that? The punishment you're going to inflict is the use of the prior inconsistent statement which you had savored for all this time. What words do you use in the question? The words, my friend, what words are best? The witness's own words. And when I say use the witness's own words, you're talking not about just his own words, but his exact words. If in the prior statement he said yins, you use yins. If he said I seen it, you said you've seen it. You use the exact words that the witness used. Because it also, number one, it shows the jury that you really know what the guy said. But more important, it sends the message to the witness. And that's what this is about, is control. It sends a message to the witness. This person has my exact words. This person's going to stick it to me. with my words. And I always say this, in cross-examination, the analogy I use, and this may upset people who are concerned with animals, please, it's just a story. It's not really happening. It's what I call the analogy of the donkey and the cart. You're going down the road, you got a donkey pulling a cart, and you're guiding the donkey. You want to go down the road, but the donkey thinks the donkey can go wherever it wants to go. So the donkey turns to the right. And you have a little whip with a little dot on it, and you pop him on his nose. Donkey hurts it. Donkey starts going straight. The donkey thinks he's going to go to the left. And you pop him on the left side. And then the donkey goes right again. And you pop him on that side of the nose. About that time, it gets through the donkey's head. The only way I can go is straight ahead. I can't go in any other direction. If I turn one way or the other, I'm going to get hit on the nose, and it hurts, and I just want to get this over with. And they will go straight. It's the same thing with a witness, my friend. It takes about 3 of these disciplinary measures, and even the most arrogant witness gets the message. I can only say yes. Or they'll pull out another prior statement and that thick book thing. They'll pull out another statement and embarrass me again and show me to be a liar. And this is not what I thought it was going to be. And I think I just want to get off this witness stand. When you're doing cross-examination, when I talk about being brief, remember this. The 2 rules of trial practice are primacy and recency. It's one of the most fundamental things about human beings is that we tend to remember the first thing we heard in any type of thing, speech or cross-examination, and we tend to hear the last thing. Remember, that's what we remember. And the first part of it is so important. You know, tell me if this is not true. Go to church sermon. You listen, if the guy doesn't get you in the first 5 minutes, you're off thinking a la la land, probably sex or something. I don't know. You've got to get the people right at the beginning. Oscar Hammerstein, the great lyricist, Rodgers and Hammerstein, said if you get the audience in the first 5 minutes, you can read the phone book to them for the rest of it. But if you lose them in the first 5 minutes, it's all over. And so when you're doing a cross-examination, what you want to do when you do a cross-examination is to have your killer question first. And have it so that you know that they're going to contradict it. You're going to say, is something true? They're going to say no. You're going to prove that they said it was true. And that's the first question. The jury will remember that. The next question, they'll take a second question perhaps, and it will be about the third one, that the witness, you're in his head now, his or her head, and they can only answer yes. And you watch the witness, after a while, to start going, yes, yes. And you can almost get them to say anything. You could almost get them to say, you know, were you a SS prison guard at Auschwitz? Well, I don't remember. Yeah, I guess so. I must have said that at some point. You see what I mean? Because you have the ammunition to cross-examine them. One last thing is the salutation. Lawyers do things, and I cannot understand why they do them. Almost every lawyer I see starts every cross-examination with this salutation. They stand up, they say, hi, good afternoon, Mr. Jones. My name is Lindsay, and I'm going to be asking you some questions. Are you comfortable? Is the cushion good enough under your seat? Do you need a drink of water? If you want to stop for any reason, tell me. What the hell is that? Why do lawyers do that? Maybe someone does it here can explain to me why they do that. You see, I know why lawyers are doing it. Lawyers are doing that because they're scared. They're scared to show that I'm about to have a confrontation with you. And they're afraid they're going to lose the confrontation. And so they do that. But you see, what it does is it sends the message to the witness that they're in control, that you're afraid of them. That's what it does. When I like to start a cross-examination, I go to the lectern and I ask my first question. I don't introduce myself. The witness knows who the devil I am. The judge knows who I am. The jury knows. And number one, I don't give a damn if he's comfortable. We're about to have a confrontation. And by the tone of my voice, by the expression on my face, and the words of my question, I want to convey the following message to the person sitting on the stand. Sir, this ain't going to be your day. This is going to be a happy time, and you're going to be glad when this is all over. That's the message I want to deliver. And you see, the message I want to deliver to you folks today is doing cross-examination. You are not afraid of the witness, and the reason is because you're going to be looking down the sight of your Norton bomb sight that I'm about to give you at the end of this thing. And you're about to drop a 500-pound bomb on this lion's sack of garbage's head. So you're not afraid. You're just ready to go. You're ready to go. You're so anxious, and you're going to have to probably write a note to you. Restrain yourself from going after this witness. Remember this when you want to do all of the salutations and are you comfy and so forth. This person on the stand is hurting your client. This person on the stand is probably lying. This person on the stand is going to distort things. And it's your job to show the jury, to show your client, to show the world what this person is. Now, when we do impeachment, what are we talking about? Impeachment is not a vote of the Senate. Impeachment is when you attack a witness's testimony. You attack generally three areas. The witness's perception. Could the witness see? Could the witness hear? What did the witness know? Secondly, you're going to attack the memory. Do they really remember what happened? And third, and the most important one here, is we're going to attack what is called veracity, whether they're telling the truth or not. Prior inconsistent statements, or I really should just say prior statements. Where do we get them? Where do we have them? They're everywhere. And I always say when you don't have a prior statement of a witness that you think is important and you have time to prepare for the trial, you haven't looked very hard. On the criminal side, I don't know if people do criminal cases, but we first of all have the police report. And in the police report, there will be generally statements as of witnesses. Sometimes we're blessed to have grand jury transcripts, particularly in the federal side. You get what they call Jake's material, and you can get a grand jury transcript to work with. We have preliminary hearing transcripts. And I do agree with Angela, if you're going to take a case to trial and you waive the preliminary hearing, I don't want to criticize you. I think you got rocks in your head. You need that transcript to work with. And even if the magistrate cuts you off, even if you're not only get 5 pages of transcript, it's something. And they will say things in the preliminary hearing which they were not prepared for. That will help you in the trial. You find writings, letters, communications, and you have signed statements. I'm going to give you a little packet of information here as we proceed with this. And in it you'll find a signed statement. Has anybody ever taken a signed statement? Oh, my friends. Signed statements are pure gold. I could spend another hour explaining to you the significance of a signed statement and how you use it. I had a trial in November, and my associate who was standing in the back of the room, my minion as it were, tried the case with me. And I asked him to go out and interview witnesses and to get signed statements. And he wanted to know why he needed signed statements. He got the signed statements. They were terrific signed statements. And in the trial, we were successful in using these signed statements. And I asked him going out, will you ever wonder again about using a signed statement? Would you? Nope. He's shaking his head no. Okay. So, another source of inconsistent statements to be used, and this is crazy, emails. You would be amazed what people put in emails. You know, I don't do many emails. If someone sends me an email, I might reply in one little sentence. People don't understand. They put all their private thoughts in emails. It's open to the world, and when it's out there, gosh knows where it goes. Anybody can get the damn thing. They're very discoverable, and people put crazy things in emails. I can't tell you how many criminal cases that I've had when I've been confronted with my clients' emails. What were you thinking when you put that down and you wrote that? Well, I didn't think it was a big deal. People get on there, and you see, emails are different than correspondence. When we write letters and we dictate them to our secretaries and we proofread them and we change them, and if we're any good, we think about how would this sound if it was read to a jury. Oh, but emails. We get on there and our little fingers get going, and it's astounding what people put in emails. Always try to get hold of emails. On the civil side, of course, we have what is called discovery. You've got depositions. And once again, I think people are confused about the use to make a deposition. If I'm going to take a deposition for someone, and I really believe I'm going to have a trial, what do I want? I just want them to talk. I just want them to give me words. I want them to get angry at me. I want to say, oh, please tell me more. Tell me more. And then it gives me a transcript to work with. I don't care. You know, lawyers think that they're hot stuff because they beat up a witness in a deposition. I don't want to beat up a witness. I want the witness to think in a deposition, I'm in control of this lawyer. I beat the hell out of him. That's what I want. Because in the course of it, he will make statements that will blow your mind. We have interrogatories are useful, but not as useful. And once again, we have writings, and oh boy, do we have emails, because they're really subject to discovery. So how do you use these statements, these prior statements? All right, I make the trial notebook. I don't know if anybody's used to that. Every witness that I think is going to testify, including my own, but especially the other side, gets a special little tab that has their name on them. And this is kind of like we say, like 2 months before the trial, I ask my staff, put together a trial notebook. They know how to do it. They scour the files for all the statements we have. And then what do? Oh, a month or two before the trial, I start to read these statements. I look over them, and I circle them. Oh, there's a nugget. Oh, I didn't remember him saying that, but that's really good. What you do is you scour it and look for good statements. And then go back again, about a week before the trial, and go over what you had circled, and maybe you'll underline a few really good nuggets. And by now you've got some great things to ask the witness about in an inconsistent statement or consistent statement. And then the night before the trial, or the night before you're going to do it, you're going to get up at 5 in the morning, you're going to stay up late, whatever you're having, and you're going to go over each one of those, what I call nuggets. Nuggets in these statements. And my friends, boys and girls, the nuggets are gold. Gold. And as you coddle this little nugget, and when you're thinking about, oh, what am I going to do with this sentence or this statement, whatever, you must think, how can I most effectively use this nugget? What's the best nugget, which is going to be the first question out of my mouth? What's the second best, which is going to be the last question of my 10-minute cross-examination? And what you're going to do, you're not only going to say, oh, I'm going to ask him about that. You're going to say, yes, I'm going to ask him about that. But you're also going to say, how exactly am I going to ask him? What exact words, using the transcript, are you going to use in your leading question? And you're going to think about the tone of the voice you're going to use when you ask the witness that question. You're going to think about where you're going to be in the courtroom when you ask that question. You're going to think about the expression of your face when you ask that question. And when you're doing a 10-minute cross-examination, you can do that. When you're doing a 3-hour cross-examination, you can't do that. And no one gives a damn, because it's so long, and they're only worried about one thing. What's a jury thinking about when you're doing your 3-hour cross-examination? I'll tell you what they're thinking about, boys and girls. They're thinking about, when am I going to get to me? That's what's going on in their head. And you're thinking you're doing this great, brilliant cross-examination, and no one's listening to you. Now, let's talk about the Norton bomb site. And this is cross-examination using the prior inconsistent statement. I'd like my assistant to come up, and maybe Angela. I could get you to get
Pass these out?
Pass these out, if you would. I need one.
Bruce and I will split up.
Everybody have one? Now.
Any questions? Technical people, you guys all right? Okay, batteries are okay?
Yes.
Good. All right, now, I didn't hand these out because I don't want you reading them until I tell you where we're going. All right. This first page, my friends, these are the steps to impeach a witness with a prior inconsistent statement. And what these will do, if you follow these, you will never get burned. You will never get hurt. Am I proud of these? They're not mine. They come from Goldstein's trial technique. Anybody ever heard of Goldstein's? You have now. It's a lovely book. Can I tell you a story about Goldstein's? When I was a prosecutor in the U.S. Attorney's Office, I had a trial, and I was cross-examining a witness in front of Judge Daniel Snyder. I don't know if any of you guys remember Daniel Snyder. It looks like there's some people in the audience that are old enough to remember him. Judge Snyder was in his late 50s, but he looked like he was in his mid-80s. And he talked like that too, if you remember Judge Snyder. So I am cross-examining a witness, and I have a grand jury transcript to work with, which is this is defendant. Grand jury transcripts, if you're a prosecutor, are lovely to use because you don't generally have the Q and A and so forth. So I started to cross-examine using these steps of cross-examination. And there was an objection. Your Honor, he hasn't laid a proper foundation. Judge Snyder said, "Oh, objection sustained." And I thought, man, I thought I was following the rules. So I went through it again, and I got down to a certain objection, Your Honor. He's not laying a proper foundation. Objection sustained. Counsel, you've got to lay the right foundation. So I went through it a third time, and Judge Snyder, Mr. Lindsay, would you please approach the bench? So I came up to the bench, and he said, "You're not laying the proper foundation. I suggest, young man, that you consult with Goldstein's trial technique to find out how to do this." I said, "May it please the court," I did, and I tacked to my little folder his rules of how to do that. Judge said, "Let me see that." Objection overruled. And that's what I'm going to suggest. If you want to have authority for what we're doing, rely on Goldstein, tack it into your thing, show it to the judge, and you will get objections with lawyers who don't understand how this is done. All right, here's the witness that I'm going to have, and if you'll see, this is a very simple thing to show you how you use. What I have here, if you read these statements, is I have a barroom fight. My client's name is Alan Love. He's accused of stabbing a guy by the name of Reynolds, who is known in the community as Dutch or Old Dutch. He's a bar hanger honor. The witness is a guy by the name of Thomas Matthews. Now, what I've done is I've got his trial testimony. I have a signed statement, which is what I told you about is a gold mine. And I also have a little excerpt from the preliminary hearing transcript. Now I'm going to show you how you use these prior statements to impeach Mr. Matthews. Now, as you can see from the trial testimony, Mr. Matthews, the witness, says this. There's a question. "So, Mr. Matthews, after you ordered your drink, what did you see?" Answer, "Well, I was talking to Snooky," the gentleman that owned the bar, "and I then turned around and I seen Alan Lowe stick old Dutch," that's Mr. Reynolds. "I heard them arguing before, and then I saw Dutch go down. I think Lowe stabbed him twice. There was a lot of blood on the floor. Snooky," Mr. Edwards that is, said, "What the hell happened?" And I said, "I think Lowe stabbed old Dutch. You guys better call the cops." So now Matthews is on the stand. And now I'm going to show you how you impeach Matthews by using his prior statements. Because you see, what we did is we went out and interviewed Mr. Matthews before, myself and a investigator. And there's also the preliminary hearing transcript. So it goes like this. All right, walk it through with me. You have your little list of things to do. Are you with me, my friends? Step one, have the witness to commit to the statement made on direct examination, which is to be impeached. You come right out, and what you're doing is you're sending a flag up for the jury. There's a problem here. They want to do something. So what you say this is my witness, this is Mr. Matthews. Can you get him in the picture or not? Does he need to move up? He's in the picture?
Yeah.
All right. And once again, witness has testified, he's feeling good about himself, police like him, the district attorney, everybody's smiling. And so I walk up and I say, Mr. Matthews, am I to understand that you were talking to Snooky and you turned around and you saw my client, Mr. Lowe, stick old Dutch, Mr. Reynolds?
Yeah, that's right.
And then you heard them arguing before then, and then you saw Dutch go down?
Yeah.
And I think Lowe, you said that you thought Lowe stabbed him twice, and there was a lot of blood. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Now notice I'm being cynical when I ask him these questions. This is what you said, and the tone of your voice should indicate that's bullshit. We all know that's bullshit, okay? But you say, this is what you said. All right, step one. Set it up by admitting that he made the statement on direct examination. Step two, state as a leading question that the opposite is true. And now you're going to take the signed statement, and you're going to ask as a very leading question that the opposite true. Mr. Matthews, to tell the truth, you really didn't see Dutch getting stabbed, did you?
Yeah, I don't,
As a matter of fact, you were in the men's room taking a leak when the whole ruckus occurred. Isn't that true, sir?
I might have been.
And what happened was is you came out and you saw Dutch laying on the floor.
Yeah, he was on the floor, blood everywhere.
All right. And then you said, Yin's guy's got to call the cops. Isn't that what you said?
I did.
All right. Now, so you're stating as a leading question that the opposite of what he said. You see, he said that he saw the stabbing in his statement. You didn't see the stabbing. You were in the men's room taking a leak. And you notice he used the same language, taking a leak. When all the ruckus occurred, you use his words. All right. So you ask him, once again, you really didn't see Dutch getting stabbed. Now he's going to stick to his guns that he did see it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you ask him this question. Did you ever say this is true? Any time, any place? And he's going to say, no, I never made a contrary statement. And then you must establish that there was indeed a prior statement. And you do that in this case. Generally, you show them, sir, Mr. Matthews, do you remember about a month ago I came out to your house with an investigator, James Smith? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
And do you remember that you gave me a signed statement? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Yep.
I'd like to show it to you now. You can mark it for identification or not. You're not going to introduce it into evidence. Does that appear to be that statement?
Yeah, this looks like it.
All right. The next step is what I call edifying or crediting the early statement. You want to build up the earlier statement. For example, we have a preliminary hearing transcript here. What are you going to say to edify a preliminary hearing transcript? You're going to say, Mr. Matthews, do you recall testifying at a preliminary hearing?
Yes.
And do you recall that before you testified, you were sworn as a witness?
Yes.
And do you recall that you put your right hand up and said you were sworn to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Do you remember that?
Yes.
You did tell the truth, didn't you?
Yeah.
You see what I mean? So you edify that earlier statement. In this particular case, I would ask the question, what you want to do in edifying the statement is the circumstances that he's going to keep saying yes. Well, you remember we came and we sat in your living room.
Yes.
And do you remember you showed us your Steeler paraphernalia in the living room?
Yep.
And you talked about your kid and how he's really good in Little League. Do you remember all that?
I do.
And you remember that what I did is I said I just wanted to know what happened at Snooky's bar that night. Do you remember I said that?
Yep.
And you remember I took certain notes. Do you remember that?
Yep.
And I asked you, I just want the truth. You remember that?
That's right.
And what? And I'm going to say, and you told me the truth, didn't you?
Yeah,
What's he going to say? Well, you know, I gave you a lot of crap. No, he's not going to do that. He is going to say that he told you the truth. So you edify or build up the earlier statement. And you have to think when you're using that earlier statement, how can I make that more credible when this lying guy said some things that were true in court? Are you with me so far? And you notice I say, have him commit, the witness commit that he told the truth in the previous statement when you were at the preliminary hearing. And you did tell the truth, didn't you? And when I talked to you and asked for you to tell the truth, you did tell the truth. At the bottom of the signed statement, you'll see what we have as the standard disclaimer. And what I would ask him about is that your signature at the bottom of the page? Yes. And it says above that, does it not? I have read the foregoing statement, and it set forth the truth as best I can recall it. Is that true that it did set forth the truth?
Yes.
What's he going to say? I lied? And you'll notice up here that there's a correction in the statement. And you might ask him about that to give it credibility. You were given the opportunity to read this, or you not, and you corrected the time. That's your initials up there. When I take a signed statement, I always like to have corrections, because when you come to use it in cross-examination and trial, it indicates that the witness had absolute control of what was written in the signed statement. All right. Now, we have the statement. You've got the paragraph in there. You see the lovely paragraph? The lovely paragraph, to tell the truth, I really didn't see Dutch getting stabbed. Does everybody see that paragraph? Now, let me tell you what happens. You see again and again. You're rolling. You've got the prior statement. He admits that it's true. And then it happens. Lawyers do this. Why they do it, I don't know. You say, what I'd like you to do, would you please, sir, would you please look at the second paragraph and would you read to the jury what you said in the statement?
Which second? The big paragraph or the little?
Yes, sir. The large paragraph. Would you please read it?
I don't have my glasses with me right now. I kind of have trouble reading when I don't have my glasses.
Do the best you can.
Tell the truth. I really didn't. I think I was in the men's room. I really didn't see. I don't know what I said.
Ladies and gentlemen, this happens every time you do it. And I see lawyers. Remember, you want this guy to help you. This guy's getting all kinds of dirt dumped on his head. You're making him look like a fool and a liar, and you think he's going to read this in such a way, they will sandbag you every time. Every time. You know something? If I find out that anybody in this room cross-examines using a prior inconsistent statement, and they allow the witness to read what is in there, we will find you, we will hurt you. Don't do it. Don't do it. All right. You are going to read the statement. You are going to read the statement, and you're going to put all of the inflection on it. This is your golden nugget. Think about how it sits on your lips as you're ready to tell the jury. And what you do is you ask him, sir, here's what you do. I would like you to look at that statement. So what you want to do, the next step, have the witness read the statement silently to himself. Oh. So, sir, Mr. Matthews, what I'd like to do is I'd like to show you that statement, and I'd like you to read it silently to yourself, and when you're finished, I want you to look up. Just a moment, wow. You can do this with transcripts. All right, so you've read it. And then, can we agree, sir, that that statement accurately reflects what you said in that signed statement?
Yeah.
All right. Notice I didn't ask him whether he was in the men's room taking a pee. I asked him if that's an accurate reflection of what he said. And then you say, sir, I'd like you to look at that. Is this what you said in the statement? I arrived at Snooky's bar at about 9 o'clock. To tell the truth, I really didn't see Dutch getting stabbed. I was in the men's room taking a leak when all the ruckus occurred. I come out and saw Dutch laying on the floor, and I said, Yin's guy's got to call the cops. Is that what's in that statement, Mr. Adams?
Yes.
What's he going to say? And you've had the maximum impact on the jury. And by the way, when I say These are gold nuggets, let them stay on your tongue. One of the things that people do is bizarre. Lawyers, when they start to read something, they speed up. No, 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 no. Slow down. Let it linger in the air, every sentence that they can hear. Now, or if we take the other statement, my favorite line, if we take the preliminary hearing testimony. So we asked him, once again, on direct examination, where was he when the stabbing occurred? I said, do you recall being, you've got the preliminary hearing transcript, I have it. I want you to read that, sir. When you're finished, look up. Okay. And does that accurately reflect what you said at the preliminary hearing, Mr. Matthews?
Yes.
Mr. Matthews, were you asked these questions and did you give these answers? Question. Mr. Matthews, where were you before you saw Mr. Reynolds laying on the floor? Answer. I was in the men's room. Question. What did you see when you came out of the men's room? Answer. Well, there was a big ruckus going on, and that's when I saw Dutch getting stabbed. So, is that what you said, sir?
Yeah, that's what it said.
All right, now, what do you do now? What do you do now? Stop! It's over. You do not ask him these silly-ass questions like, well, which time were you telling the truth? Was it then or whatever? That's an argumentative question. It's a dumb question. You're going to get an objection. The judge will chastise you, and it's unnecessary. You've made the point. The witness knows. The jury knows, whatever. If I ever hear any person in this class ever asking that silly-ass question, my minions will report it to us. We will find you. We will hurt you. So, don't do that. Don't do that. Now, folks, that's my lecture. That's the Norton bomb set. I would suggest that, see this piece of paper? You know, you get all these books. You get all these books in the CLE. This is really important. This is really important. You know, I think probably 35 years from now, when you're older, because we're all getting pretty old, you're gonna have a young associate look down, and under the glass on your desk is going to be this sheet of paper. It's going to have coffee stains on it. It'll be wrinkled and smudged. It'll have one of those lines across it where your chair rolled over, and they're going to say, "What is that?" And you're going to say, "That, my friend, is pure gold." You will never make a fool out of yourself if you follow these rules. Now, that's all I've got to say in my lecture. I've used about an hour, so it's all right. Oh, there's one other thing. I've made certain threats to you. I've indicated to you they're of symbolic nature only. And if you write in your recap of this that you were put off or you're upset by the threats I made, we will find you. We will hurt you. Now, what about this? What do we have in here? It's just a box. It was a prop. It has no independent value. Thank you very much. Anybody questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Excuse me, because we're going to do questions, can we make sure we get the question mic'd?
Yeah, let's load up again. We need to take a quick pause.
Okay, can we take a 2-minute pause while they get their...
Where it's on.
Okay, we're good. We're good as gold.
All right. I have 2 questions. Number one is just from my ignorance of criminal trial practice, and that is, how do you ever get these signed statements? I mean, do witnesses actually answer the door?
Oh, they do.
I mean,
Do you
I
want
to tell the guy, you know, hey.
Is it all right if I take the time to answer this?
Please, I would love to have expansion on that.
All right. When I was a law student, I had an old private investigator take me out, and he showed me how to get signed statements. The answer is, oh, yes, you do. And I've used them. You use them in the trial. Here's how you do it. First of all, you call generally ahead of time. I want to come out and talk to you. Well, you just want to talk. Okay. You're going to come, you knock on the door, you tell them exactly who you are. I represent this man. And if they're a victim of a crime or something, they're pretty mad. They want to talk to you. They want to give you a piece of their mind or whatever. Now, rule number 1. Are you ready for this? I have found that when you come into any home where there's a female, they want to give you coffee. They offer you, would you like a cup of coffee? And rule number 1, take the damn coffee. I think this is so important when you're interviewing a witness when they want to feed you. You know, my mother was Irish, and she used to feed everybody. And I thought it was typical of an Irish mother. And I found out that the German mothers did it. I found the Jewish mothers did it. I found out that African-American mothers did it. And Italian mothers, you go to talk to an Italian person, they have the whole table filled up with all these crazy pastries. I mean, you could literally eat yourself to death when you go to one of these homes. When you're interviewing a hostile witness, take the damn coffee. All right, rule number 2. When you're talking to them, scope the room. Look for something that they're interested in. Look for a picture on the wall. Their kid playing Little League. That's what I said, Little League. Steelers. Hey, what do you think about the track? Whatever. Talk about anything. Don't talk about the case. Talk about something that they're interested in. And then talk about the case. Then talk about what they're interested in. You're serious, you're fun, you're not serious, you know what I mean? You don't get into anything that's serious. You just talk to them and so forth. But you're getting, as you go, little tidbits about the case. Rule number 2 that's essential. Under no circumstances write anything down. You'll find that when the witness talks to you, the moment you pick up your pen, it's like there's a wire connected from the pen to the jaw joints. It closes their mouth. Because you see, if you come in and you take out a piece of paper and you start to write, all of a sudden the witness gets the idea this is really serious. And there's a problem. Okay? Next step is after the toothpaste is all out of the tube, what you do then is you ask them this question. Remember, by this time you're buddies. Your kids play Little League, you barrel racing and horses, you know, you remember where you grew up in the same town, you played soccer, whatever you have in common with them. And you say, listen, do you mind if I take some notes? No. And then when you take the notes, if you look at this statement, you've got what you do is you ask them questions, but you write it in the form of a narrative. What's your name? Thomas Matthews. My name is Thomas Matthews. And you're writing, not them. You're writing. What time do you think I got at Snooky's bar? It was about 8. All right. I arrived at Snooky's bar at about 8. You're writing this out as you go. You're putting in the nuggets that you know there because you've got it all out of them beforehand. You write the disclaimer at the bottom. Okay. And now you put a line for them to sign with the CDX. Okay, you put the line at the bottom. And then you say, I want you to read this statement. And I want you to make sure it's exactly the way you want it. And they read the statement. And see, he says, I think it was more like 9. Change it. Whatever. It gives the statement credit. Change it. Okay, now after that's done, you see he reads it? This is no lie. I've been taking signed statements for 45 years. If you would walk into that house and say, I'm here to take a signed statement, I want you to give me a statement, I want you to sign the paper, they would say, get the hell out of here. Right? Am I right or wrong?
No, I understand everything you're saying about.
And so what you do then, here's the crazy thing. I have never had someone read a statement that when they read the statement, they get down to the bottom, they reach for the pen. I've never had to ask anybody in my 45 years to sign. So I hope I've answered your question. You had a second question.
Yeah, the second one has to do with, I'm in the commercial patent IP litigation area, not the kind of sexy stuff that you do. So when you have a trial that's kind of overly long, involving, you know, 2 rich idiots, no juror cares who wins, does the kind of high drama that you're portraying there really effective?
Oh yes,
Yeah.
especially effective.
Okay.
I try to figure out anytime You know what an acronym is?
Sure.
It's a word you make up. I always say that in any trial, it's KISMIF, K-I-S-M-I-F. Keep it simple, make it fun. In other words, what lawyers do, this cowboy, I ain't thorough. I'm not a thorough lawyer. I want to ask the questions I want to get. If I can do a 5-minute cross-examination, I do. The idea is to keep it moving. If you keep it moving and you're interesting, you can make anything interesting. I had a guy one time, I represented a fellow who was pointing bricks at Indiana University. He was up on the 11th floor and the scaffolding collapsed and he free fell 11 stories, landed on his head on a sidewalk and survived. And he looked normal, but he was not normal. There were a lot of problems with him. And I was brought in the case 2 weeks before the trial. And we had an engineer to talk about the welds and the breaking of the welds on the scaffolding. I thought I was going to die. I went to interview this guy in his kitchen, before he was going to testify, and he talked like this. He was, do you guys remember Pat Paulson, the comedian? He would talk and it went on. I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? This guy is so incredibly boring. And I said, well, do you know welds? Welds? He said, do I know welds? And the guy suddenly came alive. And he talked about fillet welds and spot welds, and he got all animated. But the idea is you have to make a presentation. I had a witness one time. He talked about, the case I had in West Pittsburgh about the bad coal. Medusa Cement's out there. And they use coal to make cement. What do they use coal to make cement? So I had this guy said, listen, I need to know how, I need to tell the jury. He came in about 4 in the afternoon. I'm going to put him on at 9 the next morning. And I said, I need to know how coal, this bad coal affects the cement. I mean, what's the problem? And he started in this complicated thing. And I said, listen, my friend, I don't understand a damn word you're saying. Go home tonight. Talk to your wife. Have her figure out some way that you can explain what this is that we can understand. So the next day, he came in. He's on the witness stand. And I said to him, can you explain how coal is used to make cement? And he says, may I step down from the witness stand? And I'll never forget this. He had, cement's made with a kiln. It's like a long tube. And they put the coal in someplace, and they put the limestone in, and they put the heat in, and it rolls, this thing rolls, and the cement comes out the bottom, Portland cement. So he takes, Christmas paper, you get wrapping, it comes in one of those cardboard tubes. He comes in with this, he steps down, and he starts walking in front of the church. And he says, ladies and gentlemen, this is a kiln. Try to picture it rolls like this. And he starts using this thing to say where everything went. And I thought, oh man, I can't believe this. It was so good. But you have to work at it to make it understandable. You know the glory about being a trial lawyer. And I love this. Any other discipline. It's like if I give you a lecture here, if I get 3 or 4 people that are interested all the way through, that's fine. Some people are going to drop out. Some people aren't going to care anything I say. If you go to a sermon at church, some people listen, some people don't. But what we do, what we lawyers do, we try a jury trial. The glory is we have to have all 12 all the time. And we're talking about people who dropped out of school in 10th grade and people that have a PhD. And you have to keep them, you can't talk at the PhD level, you can't talk at the other level, you have to have them all. And baby, that's a discipline. And I think it's really exciting. I don't know if I'm answering your question or not. I did the best I can, damn it. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Lindsay?
Yeah.
How many years have you been doing this?
45 years.
How many trials do you think you had?
I have no idea. I tried 60 as an ADA. I tried 22 as an assistant U.S. attorney. I probably tried several hundred after that. I'm talking about jury trials. Non-jury stuff, preliminary hearings, I don't know.
And you also teach trial tactics at Pitt.
I do.
And that's like, is that Wednesday night, isn't it?
Yes.
How long have you done that?
I don't know. I think it's about 27 years. I've been very blessed. I teach, I taught with 3 women at the same time. Susan Jackson, who is no longer practicing law. Sean Reed, who was an assistant DA in Wheeling, West Virginia, and I now, for about the past 10 years, I teach with Judge Lisa Lenahan, who was a magistrate judge. Anybody know her? Lisa Lenahan? She's terrific. She's just a wonderful judge, and she's a wonderful teacher. I found that she easily outshines me. She's really something.
And this lovely lady you brought with you today is your wife. So if you could stand up and say hello to everybody. Trish Lindsay. And I know she helps you in your office for a
I'm
minute.
sitting in the back courtroom.
And how many years have you been?
45 years.
And lastly, I will close with this.
I have to tell you one thing about her, if you don't mind, because it relates to my talk. I always think of, I'm having a boxing match with a witness, right? And the problem is with lawyers, they want to knock the witness out. They want to get in and knock them out. I don't want to do that. You see, the skin up here above the eyebrows is very thin, and if you hit people up there, you can cut them. You can cut the other boxer. And so my object is always with a witness, I want to cut him. I want to cut him, get the blood running down into his eyes, and then you can get him to answer whatever you want. That sounds peculiar. I mean, well, everything about this damn speech is peculiar. But at any rate, the standard thing, she's in the courtroom for one reason. When I do a cross-examination and I walk off and we walk out in the hall, I always say this: is he cut? Has he been cut? And she'll say, oh yeah, he's bleeding, he's bleeding. But that's the idea. So I'm sorry, you wanted to say something before I...
And basically, one of our, I won't go into details, but one of our most unusual trips together, teaching together, was the day we flew to Arkansas and argued a sentencing in front of your friend, the judge. And
Bill
we
Wilson.
actually...
And what?
I won't go into the details further, but that might be a future class someday.
That's rated R. It's nothing that we did.
We didn't do anything.
No, it was just something that occurred there.
It's funny how long it takes the jury to come back, 3 days in Arkansas.
That was West Texas. But the thing about this judge, his name was Bill Wilson. He was a U.S. District Court judge, and he also raised mules. How that goes together, I know not. But he's unequivocally one of the best judges I was ever in front of. And his story I liked. When he became a federal judge, he had finished a case down in Dallas, Texas. Now he's up in Little Rock, Arkansas. And the federal judge in Texas was mad at him, and he issued a contempt citation. Now he's just been nominated by Bill Clinton to be a federal judge. And so he says, I'm not coming down there for your damn contempt citation with this the judge in Dallas. And then he got approved by the Senate, or confirmed by the Senate, so he was a federal judge. The guy wouldn't get off it. The judge down in Dallas kept pressing him to come down to face him for contempt charge. And finally, what I like is, Judge Wilson sent him a letter. He said, I'm not coming down. Why don't we do this? You send your marshals up to Texarkana, which is right on the border. I'll send my marshals down and we'll let them fight it out. And that was the last he ever heard from the Texas judge. Adios, amigos. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.